It's a really, really special moment to be in the Azteca. You know, for a historian of global football, this is the site of two of the greatest, possibly the two greatest World Cup finals ever. You know, this is what popular, demotic, democratic football is meant to look like. And I'm not disappointed. The Azteca architecture really does feel like a temple of the gods, you know. And what I like about it is that it's also, it's not flash. You know, it's old kind of architecture. It hasn't got excessive signage. It looks like a kind of old building. Its concrete is exposed to the world. And I like that about it very much. You know, when you compare it to the stadiums, oh, I don't know, the modern Wembley, let's say. Modern Wembley is too nice. It's like being at the airport, you know? This is like being in a football stadium. It's a really good question, and I'm not sure actually that I know the answer. I mean, I would say in Britain, the intellectual elite in Britain has been incredibly dismissive of football in the 20th century, and indeed of sport as a whole. It's rather, we have the expression in English, to look down your nose, like, ooh, you know, proletarian, masculine kind of, that's not what we do. And a kind of almost willful blindness to its social significance. So I think it's that combination of just kind of getting it wrong, as well as being intellectually and socially dismissive of the game, that has produced that. And to be honest, football hasn't helped. You know, football, certainly in Britain, I can't speak for Mexico, a very insular culture. You know, we have all the answers. Nobody who's not part of the inner circle of football can talk about football, is often the way. You know, you still hear that football players on the television, it's like they assert their intellectual authority. Because I've played the game, I'm the only person who can speak about it. And you know, that they've been allowed to get away with that. Whereas I tend to think about, you know, if we're talking about actually playing football, we're on your territory, you're the boss. But we're going to start talking about the politics, the social implications of football, the economics of football. Man, you're a football player. Now you're on my territory, you know. And I think we have allowed, I say we, you know, as a football culture in general, we've allowed people to get away with that argument. And I don't think it will stand anymore. I'm at the Open University. It's a distance university, right, where you teach people in their homes with television and the telephone, and it's an open, popular, democratic institution. Anyone can come to the Open University. So I go to the Open University because that's the kind of teaching I like. And I'm there for 8 years. And I say, who are our students? 75% are women in social science. The 25% who are men are mainly middle class. Where are the working class men? We as a democratic institution should be teaching them as well. What do they like? Football. Okay. I've been a football fan, right, all my life. I've gone to the football, but I never thought about it particularly in teaching terms. So I start reading, right, and this is like the late 1990s. Nick Hornby has now happened. A few good books have been written. I start reading and thinking, do you know what? There's an economics of football, a sociology of football, a politics, a geography, a psychology. Why don't we do a little course, all right, and advertise it in the football pages of the newspapers and say, come and study with us, come and study football. You like it? Come and do the whole social science degree. So I go to the university and I say, here's the plan. And they look down their nose at me and go, football? Ooh, go away. Thank God. So I'm now at home. You've got to imagine I'm at home in London with my old friend Andy, and I live in a place called Paddington in central London. And my youth and his youth is punk, right? The Sex Pistols, the Clash, that's me at 16, okay? And him at 16. So we're talking about it, and a lot of that stuff happened where I lived in London. And we thought, you know what? Wouldn't it be good to make a map of punk London? Where all the bands formed, where did they play, where were the shops? We're chat. I go to bed. The next morning, the light bulb goes off above the head, all right? Like it does in the cartoons. I go, punk map of London, football, map of football. I take my children's pens. I start drawing maps of football. I draw a map of Berlin. The teams are here, the wall is here, this is where the fans come from, this is where the important moments in the city's history connected to football happen. 3 months later, I sign a deal with a big publishing company and I make a book called The World Football Yearbook, and it's a 750-page atlas, graphic encyclopedia of football all over the world, maps, bar charts, diagrams, I make that for 1.5 years, right? I publish it. I then call my boss at the university. Hi, I am leaving the university and I'm not going to work my 6-month notice. Mwah, sayonara, goodbye. Good moment. The next day I wake up. Oh dear, what am I going to do to earn a living? I know I'm going to make this book again, so it's a start. As an academic, what was I studying? Global history and globalization, right? For 10 years, that's what I've been thinking about. Atlas of football, global history of football. And I sit down and I have one of those moments where just the brain is all electric, and I wrote a list. I wrote a list on one side of the page, most important moments in football history. Then on the other side of the page, most important moments of 20th century history. And then I start drawing the lines like this. A month later, I write The Ball is Round, but only each chapter is 1 paragraph, right? And that's how it, then I take that to the publishers and they go, okay. And that's how it started. And you know, it's a bit of a crazy thing, but you know, when I was like 19 or 20, I read a world history for the first time and I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to do one of those. And football was in a way my way of making that happen. But it's such an interesting way because, you know, when you write a world history normally of the 20th century, America is like this and Africa's this. But in football, Africa's this and America is this. So it's a really great way of seeing the world a little bit differently. And you know, once I started, can't stop now. Yeah, they are different. I mean, the great thing with football, of course, is that it's exactly the same everywhere, and yet it's completely different. So for the comparative sociologist in me, that's perfect. That's what you're looking for. Something that's the same, but different, and then you can begin to understand what creates the differences. I mean, it depends what era of football you're looking at, and I haven't got time now to cover the whole of that comparative history. I think the most recent history is really interesting because you know, Europe has, the balance of power was always quite close actually, and there have been many times in many eras where Latin American football has been more interesting and better than European football, and the economic situation wasn't that different. But the last 20 years, you know, the gap has grown and grown and grown and grown and grown. And that's had very negative consequences, I think, for football here, because so many of the best players are now all playing in Europe. And, you know, I've walked around the streets of Brazil and people are wearing Manchester United and Arsenal shirts, not Flamengo shirts. This is a problem for Brazilian football. I can't speak for everywhere else. So I think the difference at the moment, above all, is about economics, you know. And I think that Latin America, of course, there's less money, right? So it's hard to compete. But the potential is there in terms of the crowds, the stadium, the cultural heritage, and above all, the incredible conveyor belt of players. The possibility of reviving Latin American football, making money out of it, and reviving it domestically is possible. But there is going to have to be a massive set of changes, above all in the people who run the game. You know, the people who run the football federations, the people who run the football clubs. You know, that's where the change has got to be coming from. And if that happens, maybe the gap can be closed.